I made a video on the Jungle Book early last year where I talked about having a top 3 Disney movie list. You know, back when that company still made stuff we wanted to watch. Aladdin is at the top of the Disney list for a lot of people, but I don't understand how that can be. Aladdin is the story of this brokey street rat simp who would do anything to get the princess, and he doesn't even have a Bugatti. How do you expect to get the princess when you live on the streets, my guy? Your priorities are all off, you brokey peasant street rat simp no Bugatti having Aladdin. Shout out to the real man's men if you know what I'm talking about. No, I'm joking, I am kidding, calm down, release the device and wait a minute before you click off the video. I'm joking. The first time I made an inferior version of this video last year, I thought that Andrew Tate reference would date this video, but here we are many months later and it's apparently still quite relevant. My favorite Disney movie is actually another favorite of a lot of people. The Lion King has seen a resurgence in the pop culture landscape recently for some reason, and I saw so many hot takes on it, including my favorite. The wildebeests deliberately trampled on Mufasa because the lions were eating them and playing this benevolent circle of life monarchy games with the herbivores. How are you going to eat the herbivores and then have them show up to celebrate the birth of your son who will grow up to eat them as well? Huh. I never really thought about the parallels in real life. This movie was actually more political than I thought. Mufasa was a grimy dictator, man. I know a few global elites who would be very proud. But if you deep dive into a lot of these movies, you will destroy your childhood. But the reason I bring up The Lion King is that story had a big arc that is related to the title of this video. And now I can never change the title. But Simba's dad gets killed by his uncle Scar and Simba gets exiled from Pride Rock. Not that Pride Rock. He's eventually found by Pumbaa and Timon, who raise him on bugs and living the good life, and Simba grows up to be a fun-loving lion who just chills and enjoys the finer things in life. Turns out insects have enough protein to make you big and strong like a lion, who would have guessed? But at this point, Simba is pretty much a 35-year-old bachelor who is earning a good income and partying with his friends. It looks like paradise, until Nala shows up and crashes the party. She reminds him of his responsibilities that he ran away from, while using her lioness Riz to get him to go back with her. That will date this video for sure. Riz. But every boys' crew where one of the guys decides to settle down and start a family can identify with Pumbaa and Timon here. Yoko Ono just had to come in and ruin the party for everyone. I am kidding, I'm kidding. Put the knives down. Simba had to grow up and handle his responsibilities. You got this, King! Then we can even talk about the most obvious analogy to eternal youth. Peter Pan actually had some really wild scenes that I had completely forgotten about. They obviously went over my head when I was a kid, but it's a similar thing here where Peter is determined to not ever leave this kids next door paradise with his lost boys. I can't escape this life that I'm living. Wendy, on the other hand, meets Peter, leaves with him and experiences the magic of Neverland with her brothers, but she still knows that she has to get back to her life in the real world and grow up. I watch live-action movies as well. I'm not purely a cartoon guy. Palm Springs is a 2020 Andy Samberg movie that tackled this topic really well. He plays Niles, who is trapped in an infinite loop where he relives the same day over and over. While it's really interesting how random events change within each loop, it will always reset when the day ends or when Niles goes to sleep or when Niles dies. Only a select few in the course of the movie are aware of this reset, the reasons for which I will not spoil, and Niles and the select few are the only ones who retain their memories after each reset. That means that he and a couple of others are trapped in a playground with almost zero consequences. It's kinda like a video game, and that is me foreshadowing this video. Niles masters everyone's words and actions through that day, which gives him some sort of superpower. Again, like playing a video game. He knows where to be and what to do and say at any given time because he has relived that day infinitely, retained all the memories, and this creates a massive sense of comfort and complacency. Imagine never needing to do anything for the rest of an eternal life. You can indulge your best or worst impulses infinitely with no consequences. Well, almost no consequences. They make a point in the movie to say that hedonism or nihilism will eventually damage your own psyche. So Niles eventually pulls this girl into the loop and a lot of shenanigans ensue. A lot of incredibly interesting shenanigans. But to return to the theme of the video, she has her fun for 5 minutes like Wendy in Neverland or Nala in wherever that was, but then wants to get out of the loop and return to her real life, while Niles does not want to leave the comfort of the loop. Basically like Simba and Peter Pan. The movie essentially becomes like The Lion King, where he has to come to the realization that it is time to leave the bubble behind and return to his real life, and it's this lady in his life who pushes him towards that realization. The choice is to leave this huge safety net and trade it for a life where he will have to work hard, tackle tough responsibilities, probably start a family, and eventually age and die permanently. I'm a sucker for the idea of laying in a pool for hours on end, so the first time I saw this movie I thought, here comes this girl trying to ruin everything. Let Niles enjoy the soft life. Being a man is very stressful. So there are a lot of obvious parallels between these movies and modern society. Men and women experience time very differently. Call it a fact, call it a lie, call it a social construct, call it whatever you want, but it's a reality for the majority of the inhabitants on this blue planet. All men go through phases where they have no perceived value, and when they eventually get to a stage where they are making money, are physically fit, can groom themselves, and therefore become desirable, a lot of them choose to live in that bubble for as long as they can, until some good woman comes along to pull them out of it. Well, you would hope it's a good woman. Around the time when men get to that stage, their female contemporaries who feel so inclined will usually pull them into the next phase of their lives where they can start a family before it's too late. For the women. Unfortunately, they are now dealing with a lot of men who prefer to stay in this perpetual loop of leisure and low-maintenance relationships. This includes casual hookups, video games, sports, travel, and hanging out with the boys. I've seen this cause problems for a lot of people. Now, I like to lead with empathy, as you can probably already guess, even when the people I'm channeling my empathy towards do not extend that empathy to others themselves. But before I say it, I know a lot of women who are not like this at all, but I also personally know a lot of women who hold this stance.
I don't know, in my opinion, I think that, there's something a little bit childlike about it, a grown man to be playing games, and it is a huge turn off for me.
And the reason for that is,
like, it's hard enough to get text messages back from guys. I don't need to now compete with a freaking game.
Now, my empathetic side completely understands this because they are looking out for their own interests. Nobody wants to compete with an inanimate object that is lower in maintenance than they are themselves. Women who desire the traditional family experience will seek out compatible men within the time that biology allows them to safely have children. Men, on the other hand, are not necessarily bound by this time constraint. And women know that if left to our own devices, men can find joy in video games, watching marble races or slow-mo videos for days on end, or really for the rest of our lives. I've recently discovered the RC world, and I have spent so much time watching those videos. There is no limit to the amount of time men will spend on some of the most inconsequential things. Okay, quick tangent. I stumbled across a video that, okay, just watch.
So, Dr. Emily, Katie there saying there must be something wrong with you if you haven't had kids naturally by the time you're in your 30s.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, society has evolved and biology simply hasn't kept up with us.
So that outright rejection of reality was funny to me a year ago, but I find it really sad and misleading now in so many ways, because I know a lot of people who bought into that lie and found out the error in that worldview when it was a bit too late.
Men do exactly the same thing, but they have the luxury of not having to worry about the biological clock.
Turns out we're not entirely equal, men and women, we are different.
I tell my female friends all the time, arm yourself with as much information as possible before you make such large life-changing decisions that could lead to regret. But back to my previous point. If men can achieve comfort when they're single, they will pretty much fly by the seat of their pants for as long as they want and find an Amal Clooney in their later years, which can sometimes be destructive in the meantime, but you have to present a very compelling reason for some men to leave the comfort of the bubble behind. With the way the modern day economy is set up, most men are taking longer to establish themselves at the level they desire anyway, before they tie the knot or jump the broom or whatever your metaphor for marriage is. I think by now you're starting to realize that the title of this video is a Trojan horse to get me in the door, so I can talk about this annoying narrative that is perpetuated on a lot of manosphere channels. From my perspective, which is correct, there is nothing wrong with being a grown man who plays video games as long as you handle your responsibilities. That last part is very important. As you can tell from some of the videos on this channel, I am a gamer myself, although it's become increasingly difficult to find the time to catch up on my backlog. I pick my spots where I can, but lately I have been too busy to pick up a controller. A lot of people like to shame gamers, including these manosphere videos, because they think games are addictive and turn men into losers. I see comments all the time talking about,
I used to play video games, but I'm so glad I grew up and stopped.
I think if gaming negatively affects your real life, you have discipline or impulse control issues and not gaming issues, because several studies have credited gaming with very positive cognitive effects. Certain professions have even incorporated gaming mechanics into their training and workflow processes because of how intuitive it is. I know a lot of people who have addictive personality disorders, and whatever they get uncontrollably obsessed with is just a conduit that they use to channel their lack of impulse control. It could be anything from coffee to illegal substances to even massages, and in that case you could be doing a lot worse things if you weren't a gamer. There is nothing inherently wrong with gaming in and of itself, but rather people who cannot control themselves getting into the hobby. Or maybe I'm just making excuses for my own lifestyle, who knows. But all I know is this whole video was an elaborate attempt at attacking these self-improvement channels that really irritate me when they talk about subjects like these that they really know nothing about, probably informed by extensive research in bro science.
Bros before hoes, man.
There are a lot of people who could be doing a lot more constructive things with their lives, but not all gamers fall into that bracket. There will always be people who try to shame your hobby under the guise of leading you to what is best for you, and more often than not, you will find there is a grift attached to that. While women who are so inclined can often help men plant roots or set up an anchor or whatever metaphor you prefer that leads to stability, not all people have your best interests in mind when they are trying to be the Nala in your life. I've seen that go very sideways in a variety of scenarios due to selfish interests on the incompatible partner's part. How are you going to play video games in secret because you're afraid of your partner?
Shane, does she hate you playing the video games? Because that's what I would be doing if I was your partner. I would hate for you to be playing video games.
Then you go online and everyone wants to tell you how much of a loser you are for something that genuinely makes you happy and is not hurting anyone. Gaming has legitimately become shorthand for a loser who sponges off his girlfriend while stuck on the couch all day in a depressed state because everything is just so tough now and he has all but given up.
Oh, Mina, I just find that so bizarre. I really do, and I'm sorry if that's going to offend people. I just find that that's a weird thing for an adult to be doing.
If anyone ever makes you feel like you're not a man because you're still chasing your dreams, figuring life out, and having fun playing video games on Saturday morning, you spit in their face and tell them Melman said video games are cool. No, I'm kidding. Do not spit on anyone, it's not hygienic. But if you fall into the depressed, addicted gamer bracket, I wish you a swift exit from that compulsion, and I promise it gets better once you cultivate healthier habits into majority of your day. Go for walks or runs and get into some calisthenics, and do not wait for Nala to come and save you. You've got this. But if it does come to that, take her paw and reclaim your throne on Pride Rock. Scar is temporary, but Mufasa is permanent. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.